So now we are moving to calculus. Basically, what is calculus? Calculus is just the study of continuous functions وكل هالمواضيع. What you need to know is there's two fields of calculus that are the primary parts, which is differentiation or integration, which we will cover both inshallah today. We will start obviously with differentiation. Differentiation, what is differentiation بشكل عام? Differentiation is if you have a given function, let's say y is equal to x squared. Then a simple function, okay? So this function, it can represent anything. It could be representing either acceleration, velocity, a change in some sort, a rate, whatever. And when you use differentiation, the idea of it is to analyze this function in terms of time, in terms of a rate, in terms of a change بشكل عام. That's the whole idea of differentiation, is you're trying to study the change of something. So how do you apply it with the basic rule of differentiation? Differentiation, when you have any value x to the power of n, and then let's say y is equal to x to the power of n, the rule to find dy by dx, which is the differentiation. This is how you write or note the differentiation. What it means is the variable y or the function y, you will differentiate it in terms of the x value of the y. So in this case, our x value is to the power n. So what do? We are going to subtract from the power -1. All right, and we will multiply it by n. Okay, so this is basically what the الزبدة مال differentiation when it comes to basic equations. Again, in the formula sheet, it also shows you the same thing here, and we will go into more details with it. Now, differentiation only affects the variable in question. In this case, it's the variable x. So for example, let's say we have this equation, yx equal x squared, dy by dx, which is the differentiation, is going to be equal to, we will subtract, first we will take the 2 out, multiply it by x, and we will subtract 2 minus 1. And in other words, it's simply 2x. Okay, this is what differentiation is in its simplest form. Let's say we have a function y is equal to 3x cubed. Okay, like we said, this is the change of variables. When we do differentiation, dy by dx, we are talking about the change in the variable. فالconstants ما يتأثرون. يعني هذا ال 3 هني that is being multiplied by x cubed, it is not being affected. So it will stay the same. 3 بيتم هني. زين. Now we will differentiate the x cubed. We will take the 3, multiply it. So it will become 3x. And then we will do -1. So 3 minus 1 is simply 2. Simplifying this more, 3 times 3, it's 9x squared. I'm pretty sure all of you are familiar with this. I'm just covering the general rule concept just in case. طبعا, they can give you some more confusing ones. For example, يعطونكم y is equal to the square root of x. And to هني, if you remember from previous sessions, this you can rewrite it as if it is x to the power of half. Okay? This is what you always do when you want to differentiate. You have to always put it in exponent form بهالطريقة عشان it makes it easier when it comes to the actual differentiation. If we want to solve this, y is equal to x to the power half, and find the differentiation of it. How do we do that? dy by dx is equal to, again, we will multiply this. We will multiply this. So it's going to be half times x. بعدين الhalf, we will subtract from it 1 minus 1. So if we want to rewrite this, it's going to be half x dy by dx is equal to half x. Half minus 1 is minus half. Okay? Another way of writing this, which you should already know from previous sessions, half إذا عندنا 2 تحت معناته this is a square root زين of x to the power of -1. In other words, this is equal to half 1 over square root x. صح ولا لا؟ And we have a power of -1. This is just a different way of writing it. يعني هني خلاص جوابكم صح هني. Okay? You don't have to simplify it usually more, but I'm not sure how much detail يبون في الامتحان. يعني أنا when I was studying it, they wanted it to be in its complete simplest form. So the final answer would be 1 over 2 square root x. And that's the differentiation. The concept here, what you really need to understand, إنه هو when you have a square root given, تحطونه in this term, إنزين, in terms of exponent. In terms of the exponent, then you can do the differentiation easy peasy. تمام? Let's take another example. Let's say the function this time we represent it not as y, we say f of x. This is the exact same thing. This is the exact same thing as saying y is equal to, بس هني قاعدين يستخدمونه كfunction. So f of x is equal to, let's say, 1 over the square root of x cubed مثلا. Okay? So now here you need to understand what all of this means. First of all, f of x, this is the same as saying يعني y is equal to 1 over cube root of square root of x cubed. It's the same thing. But the way you denote it is you put a prime هني, نفس an apostrophe or whatever. This means it's the derivation of it. Okay? If you want to derive it. But before we move on to that, you have to simplify this equation. You have to simplify it in terms إنه يكون عندكم power in an exponential form. So how do we do that? Let's do it step by step. 1 over square root of x cubed is simply saying x cubed. Square root معناته to the power of 3 over 2. صح ولا لا؟ لأن square root means power of 1 over 2. Simplifying it even more, this is in the denominator. How can we move something from the denominator to the numerator? We just add a minus here. Okay, so how does that work? Here it's going to be plus, here it's going to be x to the power of minus 3 over 2. This is all stuff you guys should already know, either from foundation math or back from school or from معرفة بهالمادة بعد سويته قبل. This is already like basic concepts. إنزين? So x to the power of minus 3 over 2. Once you get it in this form, now you can easily do the differentiation using the general rule. So the differentiation f prime of x is equal to, we multiply by minus 3 over 2 outside, and then x minus 3 over 2 minus 1. Okay? If we simplify this more, this is going to be minus 3 over 2 x minus 3 over 2 minus 1 is minus 5 over 2. Tamam? Now we take it back to the root form. Okay? So it's minus 3 over 2 x to the power of 5 under the square root to the power of minus 1, tamam? Which is equal to minus 3 over 2, 1 over the square root of x to the power of 5. What does this mean? احنا هني عندنا 2, صح? This 2 is what represents the square root over here. وهني عندنا 5. This 5 represents ال 5 اللي هني, the same 5 هني. وعندنا هني minus. Minus معناته it has to go down into the denominator, which is also here minus 1, the same idea. Okay? And that's how you simplify it at the end. So simply we can say f prime of x is equal to minus 3 all over 2 square root of x to the power of 5. Is this concept clear so far? So far, this is just the general rule. You guys need to already know this. Yani these are the simple steps. Ashan, before I move on to cosine, sine, and everything else. Is that fine? Before moving on to sine and cosine, so let's say we have a function. Again, let's call it f of t, for example. F of t. The variable we are talking about can change. It can be any variable you are talking about. مو شرط يكون x, it can be t, it can be a, it can be l, any variable. So let's say we have 3x squared minus 1 over square root x. Okay? How can we find a differentiation of this function? So we're going to have to differentiate each part by itself. So if there is addition or subtraction in between them, you can differentiate this part separately and this part separately. Tamam? So the first one is 3x squared. What do? We take the 2 out, multiply it by 2, so it's 3 times 2 x2 minus 1 minus, which is just this minus over here, 1 over square root x, and then this, if we want to write it in a different way, it's also x to the power of minus half. Half ليش؟ لأن it's under the square root. Minus ليش؟ لأن it's in the denominator. So how do we differentiate x to the power minus half? We are going to write minus half times x to the power of minus half minus 1. The general rule. So we're going to apply it to each one separately. تمام? Moving on, just to simplify things, 3 times 2 is 6. X to the power of 2 minus 1 is just 1, and just x. Minus here and minus and minus becomes plus half. X to the power of minus half minus 1 is equal to minus 3 over 2. And then if we want to re-simplify it or turn it back into root form, this is going to be 1 over 2 square root x cubed. Again, why is it 1 over 2 square root x cubed? We have divided by 2 here, which is representing the square root. We have the 3 here, which is representing the cubed here. And we have the minus here, which is basically representing that it's in the denominator section. Tamam? So this is the general rule when it comes to derivation. If we are going to go and do other functions now, let's say we have sine and cosine functions. Sine and cosine functions. So let's say we have a function y is equal to sine of, for example, let's say theta. Okay, sine of theta. dy by d theta in this case, because the variable we are talking about is the theta. So that's the variable we want to change. Okay, so dy by d theta is simply cosine theta. Again, this is given in the equation that will be given to you in the exam. No memorization needed, just understanding. Okay, same thing with cosine. So y is equal to cosine theta. dy by d theta is equal to, in this case, because we're going from cosine to sine, it is going to be negative sine theta. Okay, so these are the basic rules for sine and cosine. Now, let's say if we have a function y is equal to sine of 2 theta. Sine of 2 theta هني, all you're going to have to do is dy by d theta. We know that this is going to be equal to cosine 2 theta. But one thing we have to do is we're going to have to multiply the constant here also outside. So it will be 2 cosine 2 theta. Tamam? Make sure you are still putting 2 theta. Nothing inside will change because this is sine 2 theta. Here it will be cosine 2 theta. But because we have a 2 multiplied inside, we have to multiply it outside. Again, this is mentioned in the equation that is given to you. Sine ax, the differentiation of it is a cosine ax. All right? Same case with cosine. So let's say we have y is equal to 3 cosine 4 theta. Okay? Constants outside, they do not get affected as long as they're multiplied. So let's say we have dy by d theta. The 3 does not change. Okay, the 3 is going to be the same because it's not a variable, it's a constant. Times 4. This 4, we are going to take it, we're going to multiply it outside as well. Sine 4 theta. This is cosine, so there's going to be a minus. When you're going from cosine to sine, you're going to have to add the negative sign. There will be a negative sign for the differentiation of cosine, okay? And remember, 4 theta will stay as 4 theta. Do not remove the 4 from inside the theta. This is what the general rule for sine and cosine is. Moving on to exponential and logarithms. So let's say we have y is equal to e to the power of x. This one is the easiest one to solve. dy by dx is going to be equal to e to the power of x. Yes, it's the same thing. When you are doing change, when it comes to an exponential, it does not change. Okay, when it's e to the power of something, it will not change. The only difference is if you have y is equal to, let's say, e to the power of 4x. Okay, so dy by dx is going to be, we're going to take the 4 and multiply it outside as well. So it's going to be 4e to the power of 4x. Tamam? So far, so good, right? Straightforward, very simple. So e to the power of x, the differentiation of it does nothing changes. If you have a constant inside multiplied by x, you will just multiply it outside when you differentiate. Now, let's move on to ln and log. So ln of x, let's say y or f of x is equal to ln of x. Okay? Or just ln x simply. عشان ما تتخربطون وايد ln x. Okay? The differentiation, or in this case, it's not dy, it is f prime of x is equal to ln x. When you differentiate it, you simply get the value of 1 over x as the answer. All right? One extra thing when it comes to ln of x, let's say we have ln 4x. Then ln 4x. When we differentiate here, again, the value is going to be just 1 over x and not 1 over 4x. Okay, there's theory behind this. I don't want to go through the theory too much. All you need to understand is even if you have a constant multiplied by x in the case of ln or log, when you're differentiating, the value at the end will stay as 1 over x. Okay? Let's say we have a function, y is equal to 7 ln x. Okay? Y dy by dx, 7 is a constant, so 7 will stay outside, times the differentiation of ln x, which is 1 over x. So this is equal to 7 over x in this case. Tamam? Remember, when you have a constant multiplied outside, it does not get affected by the differentiation. In the case of, let's say we have y is equal to x cubed plus 5, هني the differentiation, this constant does not have any variable attached to it, this number 5. So because it has no variable being multiplied by it, it is going to become 0 during differentiation. Okay? Just during the differentiation. So it will turn into 0. So this is 3x squared, the differentiation of this, plus 0. Because a constant, when you differentiate a constant, it's a constant value. ما يكون في change. لأن فكرة differentiation is you are causing the variable to change. هني this is a constant value. رقم ما يتغير. 5. So when you're changing الخمسة ما في تغيير منه. فال change of the 5 is 0. That's why constants are always differentiated to 0. تمام? Any questions so far about the basic rules? I believe even ln and e to the power ax معطينكم اياه، ln ax معطينكم اياه بعد ال differentiation ماله. تمام؟ Any questions so far before I move on to product and the division rule or quotient rule? No? So far so good? Okay. So now we're going to go into something called the product rule. What is the product rule? Product rule basically says that if you have a function dy, if you have a function y, okay? If you have a function y, then let's say we have y is equal to, I don't know, 3x cubed times cosine of x. Let's keep it simple. Cosine of x. هني what does product rule mean؟ معناته we have two variables being multiplied by each other. يعني هني عندنا two separate variables that are being multiplied. That means we have to use something called the product rule. The product rule, what does it say? It says dy by dx is equal to u, which I will talk about in a second, times dv by dx, okay, times dv by dx, plus v times du by dx. I think they also give you this in the formula sheet, if I'm not wrong. Yes, they give you the product rule, okay? So what does this mean? what does the product rule, how do we apply this product rule to this equation? So هني we have to define this to be u, and we have to define this, let's use purple, this to be v. Okay, this is what the quotient. So basically what we are saying y is equal to u times v. Okay, that's how you apply a product rule. When do you apply it? When you have two variables of which we are trying to differentiate, في الحالة الx we're trying to differentiate, and we have two of the variables being multiplied with each other. So we have to use this product rule. And we just apply the simple equation. We set one of them to be u, and we set the other one to be v. Now, if we set, let's do it step by step. So u is equal to 3x cubed. Okay? And v is equal to cosine x. First, we find dv by dx, or du by dx, or dv by dx to use the equation. For what does that mean? يعني du by dx, which is basically just the derivation or the differentiation of this variable. So how do you differentiate 3x cubed? Same as we used earlier before. 3x cubed is simply going to be 3 times 3x, 3 minus 1, 2. So in other words, it's equal to 9x squared. This is our du by dx. Again, we will do the same thing here. dv by dx is equal to, we have cosine. What's the derivation of cosine? It is minus sine of x. And that's it. And now we have all our variables given to us here. We found all the variables to satisfy this equation. عشان نحصل dy by dx, which is the differentiation of this original equation. If we look at this equation now, dy by dx, so dy by dx is equal to u, the u, 3x cubed, this u over here, times dv by dx, which is minus sine x, plus v, which is cosine x, times du by dx, which is 9x squared. And there you go. You have your final differentiation. All you need to do is now simplify. So dy by dx is equal to 3x cubed times minus sine x is simply just minus 3x cubed sine x, plus 9x squared times cosine x is 9x squared cosine x. So this is the differentiation of this function, of this rule. Okay, of this y, يعني this the differentiation of the function given. تمام? It makes sense. It's very straightforward. Of course, you can use this product rule for many cases. Like in this case, I used like a normal 3x cubed with a cosine. It could be sine times 3x cubed. It could be sine times cosine. It could be ln times cosine. It could be, يعني for example, it could be y is x ln x. You will do the exact same thing, okay? You will do product rule. You will set this as u, and you will set this as v. And then you will use the equation, which is dy by dx is equal to u times v prime أو dv by dx عشان ما تتخربطون dv by dx plus v du by dx. تمام? It doesn't matter which one you choose as u or v. عادة I go in order. The first one is u and the second one is v. تمام? And then you will solve, and then you'll plug in. You'll take u, which is x, find the du by dx, or you'll take v, which is the ln x, and then you'll find dv by dx, and then you'll plug into the equation to find your final differentiation. Same thing goes for the quotient rule. So the quotient rule, let's say we have a function y is equal to x squared over sine x. Okay? Here we have division. هنا كان عندنا فوق multiplication. So we use the product rule. هنا عندنا division. We have division. So because it's division, we use quotient rule. زين. The quotient rule, what does it say? It says that dy by dx is equal to إذا أنا مو غلطان كان u prime v أيوة يعني v. I think it's also given up there, so you don't have to memorize this. But it's v, yes, v du by dx minus u dv by dx. So it's v du by dx minus, make sure it's minus. Again, just follow the formula sheet. It's given already there. U dv by dx divided by v squared. And that's it. And then you will apply the exact same rules as we did for the previous one. But in this case, the u is going to be our numerator. Okay? And the v is going to be our denominator. Make sure you don't mix up between these two. Okay? So it's u over v. يعني in other words, our y is equal to u over v. تمام? So if we want to solve this, u is equal to x squared. So du by dx is simply equal to 2x. When it comes to the v, it's equal to sine x. dv by dx is equal to cosine x. Okay? Let's make it a bit more interesting. Let's say it is not sine x. Let's say it is sine 3x. عشان بس you understand this concept. So this is sine 3x. The derivation of sine 3x is 3 times cosine 3x. All right? And that's it. We have all our components. We just have to plug it in back into the formula that we have up here. So now we know that dy by dx is going to be equal to v du by dx. So v, which is sine 3x, by du by dx, which is 2x, minus, remember, it's minus in quotient rule, u, which is x squared, dv by dx, which is 3 cosine 3x, divided all by v squared. What is v? Sine x squared. So sine 3x squared. And that's it. You can simplify the numerator just to make it a bit more easier to read. And you don't have to mess around with the denominator. You can keep it the way it is. So dy by dx is equal to sine 3x times 2x is 2x sine 3x minus 3x squared, just 3 over here, the 3 over here times x squared, cosine 3x, all divided by sine squared of 3x. Tamam? That's it. You don't have to simplify it more than this. This is going to be your final answer. Easy. Any questions so far before I move on to chain rule? Okay. Seems that everyone's understanding. That's good. Moving on to chain rule. Chain rule can get a bit confusing, but do not يعني لا تتخربطون وايد. Chain rule متى يستخدم؟ Chain rule يستخدم when you have like a function that is a bit more longer, that it will take so much time to solve algebraically. For example, let's say we have y is equal to, I don't know, 5x plus 2 to the power of 12. يعني obviously you can distribute it. So 5x plus 2 times 5x plus 2 times 5x. ليه بعد سنة ما بتحلونه. So here, to find the derivative, dy by dx, we have to use something called the chain rule. Chain rule. What does chain rule say? Chain rule says dy by dx is equal to dy by du times du by dx. Now, what does this mean? What does this all mean? So what this basically means is we will identify this whole thing as u. Actually, let's use green because I'm always using green for u. u. زين؟ معناته we are saying u is equal to 5x plus 2. If we want to find du by dx, it is equal to 5. صح ولا لا? Makes sense, right? So we're finding u and du by dx. So in this case, the du is 5x plus 2, and the u is 5x plus 2, and du by dx is 5. So now when we go back to the equation y, it is equal to now u to the power of 12. So now we have u to the power of 12. This is our new equation. Then we are substituting u instead of the function inside. So this makes it easier now to derive. Now we can find dy. In this case, it's dy by du. لأن الحين الفاريبل اللي عندنا إياه it's u, it's not x. فالdy by du is equal to, simply just take out the 12, multiply outside, and minus 1. Basic derivation, that's the whole idea. u11. Okay? So this is what the this is what dy by du is, not by dx. احنا نبغى نحصل dy by dx. Remember, here is where you will apply your chain rule. So we found our u du by dx, and we have our dy by du. So what do? We need to find الحين dy by dx, and we just substitute the values. So let me, instead of writing this like this, let me change the color of this بس عشان تشوفون. This is dy by du, which is equal to 12u power 11. زين? This is this variable over here, the dy by du. du by dx is the green one, this variable اللي حصلناه هني من قبل. So now we just substitute the values. So dy by dx, the actual differentiation, was dy by du, which is what we found here, which is simply just 12u prime, times du by dx, which is 5. I will repeat before I move on. We first substituted u instead of this equation. We founded the derivation of u in terms of x. The variable here that changes is x. We found the du by dx, which is equal to 5. Then the 2 becomes 0, it's a constant. 5x, x becomes, and then just real quick note, إذا عندنا 5x, derivation x, it's here, it's as if it's power 1. So if you do the derivation here, then derivation مال هذا, it's simply saying 1 minus 1 فيستوي x power 0, يستوي x power 0 which is equal to 1, وال1 هذا تضربونه في ال5 فيبقى لكم بس 5 times 1 which is simply 5. تمام? So I am pretty sure you know this, but I just wanted to elaborate a little bit about that. زين? So we found the differentiation here of 5 for 5x plus 2. With 2 هني 0, so we found du by dx. Now we will rewrite the equation in terms of u and solve it and in terms of u again. So we will find our dy by du, not by dx. لأن الحين the variable that we have is u. Once we solve it, just like any time we solve any general differentiation, we will plug it into the chain rule to find what we wanted to find initially, which is dy by dx. Okay? So now we have this. What is left is to substitute for u prime the value that we got from here, the value that we substituted initially. So this we will put back in here, which is this value over here. So dy by dx is going to be equal to 12, 5x plus 2, which is our u value, 5x plus 2, okay, to the power of 11, لأن عندنا power 11 times 5. And that's it. Simplify it with one more step. dy by dx It's going to be equal to 5 times 12 into 5x plus 2 to the power of 11. So dy by dx is going to be equal to 5 times 12 is 60 into 5x plus 2 to the power of 11. And that's it. That's our final answer. This is how you use the chain rule. Any questions about the chain rule? This is, I think, one of the most important rules. You will use it very frequently when solving differentiation. So I want to make sure that this is clear. No questions? Hello. ممتاز. No questions so far. We will do a bit more practice problems in a bit. I just want to make sure I finished all the concepts so far. So this is literally what we saw. This is all of differentiation. This is literally all of the basic important concepts of differentiation of what we did. If you understand everything I did now, anything related to differentiation is going to be easy no matter how complicated the equation looks. Tamam? And we will see that when we solve the questions. So let's solve a few questions before I go on to the more difficult concepts. These are very easy. Let's solve this one. So when you come to solving questions, into شفت rules, all of these I did, into you're not going to use just one of them. مثلا مو بس product rule أو مو بس مثلا sine or cosine. Into you will combine a lot of different rules together to reach your final solution. So that's why you have to understand how to use each rule separately. عشان when you're doing them in a combined case like this, you know how to solve it. Now, first step, if you have a plus in between, we will not look at this. We will only solve this, and then we will solve this. Okay, so we will just solve this first, and then we will go to the next part. So e to the power of sine x. تمام? e to the power of sine x. هني we have chain rule. شو هو الchain rule؟ عندنا احنا e to the power of x وداخل x عندنا sine of x. So what do? We set a u value. Let's say u is equal to sine of x. All right. عشان we simplify this. لأن إحنا شو؟ إحنا we know how to solve if عندنا e to the power of x بروحه أو إذا عندنا e to the power of 5x. We know how to solve these cases. بس إذا عندنا another equation inside, we have to use chain rule so we can simplify this equation over here into a form that satisfies this so we can solve it easier. زين؟ That's the whole concept of chain rule. فهنا إحنا الحين we will identify this u to be equal to sine of x. عشان بعدين نقدر نرد نكتبها هذا as زين نرد نقدر نكتبها هذا as e to the power of u لأنه we can solve e to the power of u very easily. ف u is sine of x, so we need to just find du by dx. Then in terms of x, du sine x becomes cosine x. Okay, done with this step. So now let's call this function y مثلا. زين y is equal to this. Y is equal to this. زين in this case يعني or let's make it even خلى y. Okay, so there's no confusion. زين for y is equal to e to the power of u. dy by du is going to be equal to u in this case e to the power of u. If we have an exponent in terms of the variable u, it just stays the same. It does not change. It does not change at all. But remember chain rule. فاحنا نبغى نحصل dy by dx. احنا نبغى نحصل dy by dx. That's what we're trying to achieve. Chain rule يقول dy by dx is equal to dy by du times du by dx. This is our green part, du by dx over here, and this is our orange part, dy by du over here. And then we just substitute and solve simply. For dy by dx is equal to dy by du is simply e to the power of u times u is du by dx is cosine x. Instead of u, this one, we will replace it with value from here, this x over here, the sine x هني بنرد نحطه داخل اليو. So we can get it all back in terms of x. So dy by dx is going to be equal to e to the power of sine x cosine x. And that's it. And we've solved the first part of this equation. This is the first part of the equation. Then this is part 1. Okay, part 1. الحين we'll copy paste this again. Now that we finished with part 1, we're not going to look at it anymore. Let's solve for part 2, which is this part. Tamam? This is how you should solve it. If you have a plus or a minus in between two parts, solve it completely separately. وبعدين plug them all back into one equation. So let's move to this part. This part, it might look scary, but it really isn't. Just simplify it step by step and you will be fine. So there are multiple different ways of how you can do this. First things first, we know that there's going to be product rule because we have two different x, and then e to the power x multiplied by x cubed. So there's going to be multiplication in between. So we know we have to use product rule. And we will see what else we're going to have to use. So now let's look at y is equal to square root of x cubed ex. First step, get rid of this disgusting radical sign. It's going to be x cubed e to the power of x to the power of half. Now, هني تقدرون, you can do the same thing here and use chain rule عشان whatever's inside here تسوونه كأنه u to the power of half. You can do that. But because this is simple, مو لازم تسوون all these long steps عشان تحصلون الchain rule كل هذا. You can just distribute الhalf inside. لأن it's a very simple one. ما في plus, ما في minus, it's just multiplication. So this will be distributed to here and it will be distributed to here. And that's it. So it's equal to x to the power of 3 over 2, اللي هو 3 x power 3 divided by 2, or e to the power of x over 2. تمام? And these by themselves, we know how to solve them. So now we can use our product rule. ليش؟ لأن في multiplication in between these two. So we know we have to use the product rule in this case. فالproduct rule لو تتذكرون كان عندنا u dv by dx و v du by dx, and you will add them up. And this is equal to dy by dx. All right? Well, dy by dx is equal to dv, these equations. So we just have to set our u. Let's say this is u, and this is v. Tamam? For u is equal to x to the power of 3 over 2. du by dx is equal to 3 over 2 times x, and then 3 over 2 minus 1 is 1 over 2. Tamam? Same thing again with v, and then e to the power of x over 2. In other words, you can write this كأنه, if it makes it easier to see, it's e to the power of 1/2 times x. زين? Why am I writing it this way? الحين بتشوفون ليش؟ عشان when you're doing dv by dx, it's simply equal to the same thing, e to the power of x over 2. Best you will have to multiply it by the half. That's it. تمام? يعني in other words, we can write this as ex over 2 all over 2. Okay, you can keep it in this form if it's easier, that form, it's all the same. And then you just plug it in back into the equation to find our differentiation, and we're done. So dy by dx, is equal to our u, which is x, 3 over 2, our v, or our dv by dx, which is half e to the power of x over 2, plus our v, which is just e to the power of x over 2, times our du by dx, which is 3 over 2 x to the power of half. And done. Now we can just simplify this. dy by dx is equal to x to the power 3 over 2 times e, so this will become x 3 over 2 times e x over 2 all divided by 2 اللي هو الhalf plus same thing here ex, so x to the power of, or 3x to the power of half اللي هو 3x to the power of half up here times e x over 2 all divided by 2 بعد مرة, so you can just simply put them all together. It is you know, you can keep it this way يعني بعد, it's not a big issue. أهم شيء you understand the concepts. You could put them together بس بيستوي شوي وايد لوية, I want to keep them this way عشان I just show you the final answer how it will look. This is our 2. Now remember we did 2 and 1 and between them is a plus sign. For the final answer you're going to take this value زين, فالحين قاعدين نسوي 1 plus 2 plus شنو ال 2 مالنا اللي هو x 3 over 2 times e x over 2 all divided by 2 plus 3x half times e x over 2 divided by 2. Obviously you can simplify this a bit more بس إذا تبون تشوفون كيف, لأن again I'm not sure how accurate or how much simplification they want you to do, but if you want to take it back into radical form هني لو تلاحظون they're multiplied and they're both square rooted يعني over 2 or over 2 at the bottom. يعني this one, if you notice, it's divide by 2, divide by 2. So you could say that this is basically the square root of x cubed e to the power of x over 2. نفس الشيء هني عندنا 3 زين, عندنا x to the power of half times e to the power of x over 2. So you could simply just write this also as x e to the power of x all over 2. And that's it. Yeah, that's it. And this is your final answer, خلاص. This is our final solution. This is our dy by dx of this function over here, the full function. I think this might be as complicated as it might get. I don't see any other way يعني ممكن يكون أصعب لكم من ناحية derivation. Again, my advice, practice, 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 practice. Okay? Any questions? Nothing so far? Okay. طبعا الحين in real life applications, when do we use these? We use these in a lot of different applications. But in the cases يعني in your studies, mainly you need to focus on velocity, distance, velocity و acceleration, which اللي قاعدين يسوونه في mechanical, same thing. يعني you can apply these differentiation to figure out things. what does it mean? إذا عندكم into x is your distance, زين, it's x is a function of time, صح ولا لا؟ زين, يعني عادة ما اتذكر شو كان equations مال mechanical, بس I remember you guys had equations for mechanical for time, for finding the distance وهالسوالف لو تحديدون حق المidterm. Alright, but let's say we have a function x of t, يعني this is the displacement, let's call it t cubed plus 3t squared plus أو minus t مثلا, minus t plus 5 مثلا, okay? If you want to find the velocity equation of this, all you're going to have to do is do the dx by dt, which is simply deriving in terms of t to find the velocity. So v of t is equal to dx by dt, which is equal to 3t squared in this case, for example, plus 3 times 2 is 6t minus 1, t becomes minus 1, plus 5 يختفي. That's it. This is the whole concept. See, if you know how to derive, it's simple how to do the derivation. بس انتوا لازم تفهمون. If you want to go from distance to velocity, you just derive to find the equation. The same exact thing if you want to go to acceleration. you just have to derive velocity one more time. So dv by dt, which is equal to, you can either write it as dv by dt, or the second derivative, which is d squared x by dt squared. This is how you write the second derivative of x. What does this mean? It just means you're deriving x 2 times بس. يعني نسوي له derivation وبعدين نسوي له derivation بعد مرة, which is the same thing يعني. Okay? So this is how you put the notation of multiple derivations, which is in this case simply equal to 3 times 2 is 6, so 6t plus 6. And that's it. This is the whole concept of how to use it in real life example equations. يعني لو السؤال بيعطيكم يقول لكم مثلا find, بيعطيكم x of t, okay? They will give you this only equation and they will say find acceleration at time equal 5 مثلا. زين? Find the acceleration at time equal 5. So all you have to do is derive, أو حتى يقول find x, v and acceleration at a time equal 5. All you have to do is substitute this 5 in t to find x of t, بعدين derive, substitute it in this t to find v of t, بعدين derive, substitute it in a and t here عشان to find the a of t, وانتهى الموضوع. All right? I don't know if there is, I think I have some questions like that somewhere here. يعني مثلا let's take لا مو هذه وين راحوا. Let's take this one for example. The distance x meters traveled by a vehicle in time t seconds after the brakes are applied is given by x is equal to 20 t minus 5 over 3 t squared. C ده قبل ما تسوون أي شيء تعرفون إذا تبون تطلعون velocity what do you have to do? It's equal to dx by dt. وبس. فبيكون 20 minus 20t becomes 20 minus 5 over 3 times 2t. إذا حبينا نحصل velocity. وإذا حبينا نحصل acceleration, what can we do? We can derive this again, but it's pointless لأن it's most probably at a constant acceleration, a constant velocity لأن constant acceleration إيه يعني لو تشوفون acceleration الحين it's just dv by dt. 20 is a constant, it goes to 0. بيبقى لكم minus 5 over 3 2. And this is your final acceleration. يعني الحين you know it's at a constant acceleration. Acceleration is not changing just by deriving. يعني تشوفوا انتم مو معطينكم ولا شيء من الانفورمation. All they gave you is a function. And you can already identify that the vehicle is slowing down because it's negative. بمعنى انه صح قالوا it's braking, but you know it's slowing down because it's negative. And you have the value of the acceleration directly with just given شو يسمونه, just given a function, without given the time, without given anything. 5 over 3 minus 5 over 3 times 2, that's minus 10 over 3 meters per second squared. Okay? فنشوف السؤال. اللي ما قريت السؤال أصلا. The speed of the vehicle in kilometers per hour at the instant the brakes are applied. إنزين. البريكس when are they applied? When you are قاعد يقول لكم إن the distance x meters traveled by a vehicle in time t seconds after the brakes are applied. يعني بما معناه the brakes are applied when t is equal to 0. So we have to find the velocity, the speed, when time is equal to 0. So you just put t instead of 0. This will give you 20. But remember, this is meters per second. ليش؟ لأن في السؤال قالوا meters seconds. بس هم يبونه in kilometers per hour. So multiply by 3.6 وبيطلع لكم الhour value وانتهى الموضوع. تمام؟ اللي هو بيطلع 72. The distance the car travels before it stops. يعني should total distance that the car travels before it comes to a stop. How do we know this? How do we find out when the car is going to stop? The car is going to stop when ما في velocity. يوم الvelocity يكون 0. صح ولا لا؟ ف حق part B car stops معناته velocity is equal to 0. سيارة ما تتحرك ما فيها velocity. So velocity is equal to 0. ف velocity equal to 0 بنطلع التايم منه. فاحنا عندنا equation V is equal to this equation we already got 20 minus 10 over 3t. 20 minus 10 over 3t. All I did is just simplify this. 5 times 2 10 10 over 3t. ونعرف ان it's equal to 0. But 20 is going to be equal to 10 over 3t, which implies t is going to be equal to 3 times 20 over 10, which is simply 6 seconds. Okay? In seconds, obviously. Remember, لأن في السؤال قال لكم إن this equation x is in meters and t is in seconds. ال6 الحين هذا 6 time it takes until the vehicle comes to a stop. بس هم شو يبون؟ Instant brakes, they want the distance the car travels. So the distance the car travels x is equal to, we know that this is the equation, 20t minus 5 over 3t squared. 20t minus 5 over 3t squared, is that it? Yeah, minus 5 over 3t squared. At t equals 6 seconds نعوض بس هذا في equation. ف 20 times 6 minus 5 over 3 into 6 squared. Solve and you get your number. Simple, easy. All the questions are going to be something like that. يعني شوفوا هذا, it's more, the math part of it is so straightforward if you understand differentiation. فيها شوية logic, بس انتوا يعني engineers و mechanics عندكم باكر بعد الامتحان, هاي بس شي لعبة زيادة, you know, just to enjoy and remind you of your exam tomorrow. All right. So this is basically how to solve acceleration questions. Can you solve G? ما في G. وين G? G from here, you mean? This one? If there is time later on, I want to cover the other concepts as well. Inshallah, بعد the session, I will try to go and solve it as well. Just remind me, because I want to cover, there are so many concepts and I haven't even started integration, and integration is a bit longer. So I want to just cover the concepts as much as I can, and then inshallah we will continue with solving. All right? And just remind me at the end of the session. Just give me a second. Let me get me some water. صوتي بدا يروح. Any questions while I grab water? Any other questions in general about differentiation? Is everyone finding it easy? Is everyone finding it easy؟ يعني I want reaction منكم, بعرف فاهمين مو فاهمين قاعدين تستوعبون. Easy, hard. معاي راقدين. Okay, good. زين. Let's move on to turning points. And then another application where we can use differentiation. فإذا عندنا graph. Let's say we have a graph. زين. الgraph, say it's something like this. تقريبا. هني, this is what they call the turning points. The point at which the graph changes direction. This is another turning point. This is another turning point. Another turning point. Another turning point. Okay? There is 3 types of turning points. Okay? Let me redraw the graph in a better way عشان I explain the 3 types of turning points. زين. Say this is like this. زين. وكذي. So we have 3 turning points هني. This is known as the maximum. The maximum turning point, لأن it's a maximum point, it's high. يوصل للماكسيمم, فوق الجبل يوصل وينزل. So this is a maximum point. This is a minimum point. زين. ينزل لتحت بعدين يطلع فوق, so it's a minimum point. This is what they call an inflection point. Inflection. And what happens here, it's not going back up, it stops, it becomes straight. يعني السلوب مالي يستوي 0 وبعدين يرد ينزل. Okay? So that's what it means. Okay, and it continues in the same direction, but it stops for a minute and then it continues. This is what they call a point of inflection. This is how you represent them graphically. Now, when you are solving for this, when you're solving, you are going to be given a function and you will have to solve for the function. And then, so let's say we are given this function. Well, let's solve one from the worksheet. وين كان هذا الانفلكشن point هذا. Let's take, I want to take this one. زين. So هني عندكم steps you have to follow to understand how to solve this. أول step, first step, read the question. طبعا that's the first step. زين الكويشن يقول لكم الكويشن كان يقول إنه find the coordinates and the nature of any turning points. يعني يبون يحصلون coordinate مال البوينت والnature ماله بما معناه is it a maximum, is it a minimum, is it an inflection point. زين ف they want the coordinates of each point and if they're maximum, inflection or minimum. تمام. First step when you want to solve this, okay, why this is the solution, so don't look at this, okay, this is just the solution. This is the question given, they're just going to give you a function. First step you do is you do dy by dx. This is your very first step. You find ال differentiation ماله and you equate it to 0. This is your very first step. What is the differentiation of this equation? So dy by dx is equal to minus 2x cubed. For minus 2 ال 3 بنضربها في minus 2, that's minus 6x squared plus 21x squared. 2 times 21 is 42x plus 48 وبس. minus 5 is 0 plus 0 ولا تسألون. Okay, that's your first thing and we want to equate this equation to 0. فاحنا نبغى نشوف هالاequation equal to 0. all right, here you have to solve for x. You need to find your values for x. Now at this level I'm pretty sure all of you know how to use mod 3.5 or mod 5.3, sorry. Mod 5.3 put minus 6, 42 and 48 to save time. I don't think they want to see the steps of this solving, but I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't care if you use mod 5.3 for this. So x1 is going to be equal to 8 and x2 is going to be equal to minus 1. Come on. So we found our x values after differentiating. Make sure you are differentiating first. Once you found the differentiation and x1, x2, these are your coordinate points. خلاص, this is your x1 and x2. How do you find the coordinate? You need to find their y1 and y1 and y2 الحين. Remember, this is a very important step. When you are substituting to find y, you're not substituting it in the differential. You will substitute it back into the original equation. You will substitute it back into this equation. Okay, so plug in x over here for both cases to find your y1 and y2 values. I'm too lazy to do that, so I'm just going to say this is 699 and this is minus 30. Okay, all you are doing is you're going to do minus 2 حق x1 يعني. You will do minus 2, or for y1, sorry, y1 is going to be equal to minus 2 times 8 cubed plus 21 times 8 squared plus 48 times 8 minus 5 وبيطلع لكم الجواب. For y2 بتحطون minus 1. ف 2 into minus 1 cubed plus 21 into minus 1 cubed plus 48 into minus 1. Sorry, this is squared, and minus 5 وبيطلع لكم ال y2. That's it. Okay, you found your coordinate points. Now, this isn't the end of the question. We need to find whether these are maximums or minimums. How do we do that? This was our second step, substitution. This was our second step to find the coordinates. So this was step 2. Okay. Step 3, turning points. The turning points, we want to know شو كان المسمى اللي هم استخدموه nature of the turning points. تمام? So we need to know the nature of the turning points, whether they're minimums, whether they're maximums, and how do we determine all of that. So how do we do that? زين? The turning points, you see this equation over here, the differentiation that we did earlier. We are going to differentiate this one more time. So we are going to differentiate another time. So this will become d2y by dx squared. يعني the second differentiation, which is 2 times minus 6 minus 12x plus 42. Bas, and that's it. All right. Remember the points we had? We had x equal 8 or x equal minus 1. So x1 is equal to 8. x2 is equal to minus 1. x1 is equal to 8. We will plug it into this equation and see the value we get. So بنحط minus 12 into 8 plus 42. We're going to get minus 54, I believe. Minus 12 times 8 plus 42. Yep, minus 54. إنزين فحصلنا negative. This is important. This is what I want you guys to look at. We found this to be negative. Let's do the same thing for x2. BST minus 12 into x into minus 1 plus 42. This is equal to 54 plus 54. So this is minus and this is plus. An important thing to know, when it is negative, it means this is a maximum point. When it is positive, this is a minimum point. Tamam? Keep that in mind. When you have a negative, this means this is a maximum point. Why is it a maximum point? لأن لو تشوفون, this is downwards. This is going downwards. يعني يروح من فوق لتحت. So this is negative. That's why this is giving you a maximum point. هني العكس. هني هذا قاعد it's going upwards. قاعد يروح into the positive direction. This is what this basically means. The direction of where it's going. Into the positive direction. But this is a minimum point. Okay? So when you have negative, 54. When you have positive, when you have negative, sorry, maximum. When you have positive, you have minimum. If you have a 0, this is an inflection point. Okay? So if you have a 0, in the case of 0, it will be an inflection point. Inflection point is basically slope يساوي 0. It's not going up or down. It's going in a straight line, in a horizontal straight line. This is when the second derivative will give you 0. Tamam? Moving on to Newton-Raphson. Will anyone has any questions? Is this good so far? So again, you have 3 steps, a quick recap. First step, find the differentiation of the equation and equate it to 0 and solve for x. That's your first step. Second step, substitute the values to find out your points. فالحين عندنا احنا point 1. So the first point was 8, 699. And second point, minus 1, minus 30. How did we find this? By substituting the x into the original equation, into y, to find the y value. Third step, find the nature of the turning points, whether they're maximum and minimums. So x1 is a minimum. فهذا is a maximum, sorry. So x1, 8, it gave us a maximum because it's a negative value. So this is maximum. This one was minimum because it gave a positive value. How do you find out? You find the second derivative. You derive the derivation again once more. Once you find the solution here, you substitute the value of x1 and x2 in it. If it's negative, it's maximum. If it's positive, it's minimum. And if it's equal to 0, it's an inflection point. Newton-Raphson method. Very, very straightforward, very easy. You do not believe, I don't believe you have this equation in the formula sheet. Xn minus A minus f of x over f prime of x, xn. What does Newton-Raphson mean? أول شيء شو معناته Newton-Raphson method? أنتوا you are trying to solve an equation equal to 0. زين. مثلا عندكم equation 5x to the power of 5 minus 3x cubed ما أدري شو equal 0. تبون تحصلون الفاليو مال x تقريبا كم الفاليو ماله. زين. طبعا you cannot do this simply with mod 5.3 في الكالكوليتر لأن it's to the power of 5 أو إذا عندكم to the power of 15 أو ما أدري شو. So there is an approximation technique. So Newton-Raphson is basically an approximation technique. It's called a numerical method. So numerical methods is the study of approximations in math بشكل عام. Newton-Raphson is one of these approximation methods. إنزين. To utilize a Newton-Raphson method, you need to have a function and a starting point. So you have to have a function. يعني y of f of x or y is equal to something, and you have to have a starting point and x0, an approximation. And then, so it will be easier if we just do a question so I can explain it through the question. Let's say, let's take this one. Number 1. So the equation for Newton-Raphson is just this. This is your equation. This is the equation that you have to use. I don't think it's given in the formula sheet, so you have to memorize it, I assume. Zain. So if we read the question, It says in problems 1 to 7 use Newton's method to solve the equations given to the accuracy stated. أهم شيء you need to understand the accuracy that you are looking for. Yeah, the third thing you need is accuracy or number of iterations. One or the other. Accuracy will be given 3 decimal places. Number of iterations معناته من x0 بتروحون ل x1 2 3 how many times ل x كم تبون توصلون. But I believe they will bring a question like this where they will ask for accuracy. So let's solve. أول شيء, what is our function? Y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 13, صح? This is equal to 0. This is what we're trying to find. Find the derivative. First step, always find the derivative. What is the derivative? Oh, let's not call it y. Let's call it f of x and f prime of x عشان it just makes a bit more sense. So f of x f prime of x in this case is 2x minus 2, and that's it. This is your derivative. تمام? This is your very first step. We need the value to be correct within 3 decimal places, which we will see right now, and we have 2 starting points. يعني these are 2 questions basically. يعني once we will try it with minus 3 and once we'll try it with 5. So let's do it with minus 3. x0 is equal to minus 3. We know now our initial starting point is equal to minus 3. تمام؟ ف x1 xn plus 1, which is x1, is equal to x0 minus f of x0 over f prime of x0. صح ولا لا؟ f of 1 أو x1 is going to be simply equal to شو x0? It's minus 3. أو خلنا we keep it as x0 for now. It's x0 minus شنو f of x0 هذا اللي هو x squared, so x0 squared minus 2x0 minus 13 all over الدerivative ماله اللي هو 2x0 minus 2. Okay? So if we want to plug in minus 3 into here, it is going to be x1 is equal to minus 3 minus 3 squared minus 2 into minus 3 minus 13. I'm just substituting x0 into the equation over 2 into minus 3 minus 2. وبيطلع لنا الرقم. This is x1. وهالرقم مال x1, let us just find it real quickly. So minus 3 minus 3 squared. There is a quick technique on the calculator. I will explain in a bit as well. But I want you to understand the concept before we go to shortcuts. 2 minus 3 and minus 2. فأنا اللي طلع لي minus 2.75. This is the full number, minus 2.75. However, the accuracy of this, إذا تلاحظون, هم يبونه to 3 decimal places. This is only to 2 decimal places. يعني I have to do another iteration. What does that mean? لازم أروح ل x2. الحين نعرف إن x1 is equal to minus 2.75. x2 is going to be equal to minus 2.75 minus 2.75 squared اللي هو هني بدال x0 صار الحين x1 بنحط بدال الx's. Minus 2 into minus 2.75 minus 13 over 2 minus 2.75 minus 2 equal to, it will give us another number which is an approximation بعد مرة. Now, you will keep doing this until the 3 values here, the 3 values that you get are going to be the same in the calculator. What do I mean by that? So, لأن وإحنا نبغى up to 3 decimal places. The way you should solve this using your calculator is, everyone pay attention and get out your calculators to understand how to solve this using this. Up to this step, you will write manually. Up to this step, يعني لازم تكتبونه. First, you find your derivative, substitute into the equation, the derivative and the function, so you have your function هني, and then you will have to write this in the calculator. x0 مالنا is minus 3, صح ولا لا? So you will just write minus 3 equals 2. زين في الكالكوليتر عشان it stores it into your answer. زين. So minus 3 وتضربون equal. زين. ف minus 3 calculator x0 in this case minus 3 plus the equal button to store an answer. زين it will automatically store it an answer. This is أول شيء. ثاني شيء الحين عندكم الانسر مالكم تأكدوا اضربوا انسر سووا بعد مرة equal يكون minus 3 عشان تتأكدون انه you stored this into your answer. And now you will write this equation in terms of answer. Anywhere مكتوب x0 بتحطون answer بدال x0 وبتكتبونه في الكالكوليتر. فهني if I want to write for this equation let me زين for this equation answer instead of x0 زين فبتكتبون answer minus division زين يعني numerator denominator answer squared minus 2 answer minus 13 divided by 2 answer minus 2 زين يعني you are putting answer instead of this instead of this instead of this instead of this. okay, do not hit equals yet and make sure انك كتبت equation بالضبط صح لان اذا غلطه واحده بسيطه كل شيء بيستوي غلط. وتاكدوا ان you finish step 1 correctly. make sure you stored x0 stored x0 you make sure you stored the value ماله يعني make sure الانسر مالكم minus 3 قبل ما تبدون step 2 زين. when you hit equal بتشوفون يطلع لكم minus 2.75 equal you will get x1 في هالحالة minus 2.75 تضربون equal بعد مرة بيعطيكم x2 which is equal to minus 2.741666 على مجارة. زين تضربون equal بعد مرة بيعطيكم x3 which is equal to minus 2.7416 أشياء. تضربون equal بعد مرة بيعطيكم x4 and so on and so forth. The idea is what? The idea is انتو الاكيرسي مالكم لازم يكون up to 3 decimal places في السؤال مكتوب صح ولا لا؟ up to 3 decimal places. فهني زين الاكيرسي is up to 3 decimal places. فيو double check هني نفس الشيء نعم 3 decimal places still the same. هني بعد you double check نفس الشيء نعم 3 decimal places the same. So you don't have to hit equal more and more. خلاص this is your final answer. X is equal to minus 2.742. Remember, you have to round the value. This is given as 6 and then you have to round it. 6, is it greater than 5? Yes. So you have to add plus 1 to this value. Same thing here, same thing here. So you make sure يعني إن your rounding is also correct. Okay? So minus 2.742 is your final answer. This is your approximation. You will follow this step for whatever equation they give you. The challenging part بيكون إذا ما تعرفون تحصلون derivation ماله. differentiation sorry ماله. تمام? So this is the most important thing. You find the differentiation. After you do it, you substitute it into the equation. Make sure you know where your starting point is. Make sure you know how many decimal places they wanted to, and then follow these steps in the calculator, and then you will solve any type of question you want. You can. Any type of question. لأن كل اللي بتسوونه بتحطون equations على بعض في calculator and you will solve. You just need to make sure you know how to find the derivative مال question. All right? This is pretty much it. Just one extra point I want to mention. Very quickly, I'll mention it. شكل السيشن بيصير 3 ساعات لأن integration will take a bit of time. So تحملوا شوي وبناخذ break بعد after we finish differentiation so that we can start a bit more fresh with هذا. I know you guys have an exam tomorrow, but I'll do my best to finish on time. If we have the case of this, we have the case هني لو تلاحظون عندنا 14 equal not 0, it's equal to 14. all you have to do here is do 3x cubed minus 10x minus 14 equals 0. أهم شيء يكون equals 0 on one side. So you have to just take this to the other side. That's it. That's all you have to do. Whatever you have on the right side. حتى لو كان عندكم مثلا sin x on the right side. Don't worry. Take it to the other side. That's it. And it's done. All right? Make sure it's just equal to 0 because Newton-Raphson is the approximation of the zero of a solution of the function يعني of the solution of the function. فلازم يكون equal to 0 وبعدين you follow the same steps. You will do f prime وبتحصلون 9x squared minus 10 وكل هذا وبعدين بتحطون x0 minus f of x over f prime of x or you will do the iterations مالكم على calculator and you will solve. Before we take a slight break and starting integration, anyone has any questions with differentiation at all? I did not go through everything and all the problems. I tried to solve as many problems, at least يعني one difficult one in each part. But as you can see, solving is very straightforward if you understand the basics. اللي هم chain rule, product quotient rule, طبعا logarithmic, exponential, sine, cosine, كل هذيلا which we already have in the equation sheet, formula sheet. So just make sure you understand those basics. We will take a break for, let's say, 10 minutes, and we will come back, inshallah, and we'll start integration. I will try not to take too much time, but I want to make sure everyone also grasps integration before we move on. عشان tomorrow we go directly into differential equations and شو يسمونه complex numbers and all of that. So any questions before we take a break? Again, if you have to go, I understand you guys have a mechanical exam tomorrow. Whoever wants to leave is free to leave. Sessions will be recorded. I will upload to YouTube. Inshallah, we'll take a break now. I will stop the recording. Remind me to restart it again for integration so they can be separate videos.